अच्छा मैं खोल दूँ
पेन से खोलेगा फोन खोल के
बेचारा पानी दे
ना फोटो ले
अरे पण आम्ही मरलो नाही ते बघ
मरताय तुम्ही मी कशाला
फोटो ले रहा है ना
पागल स्नैप भेजता है पता है क्या मेरे को भेजा था
खत्म कर दो भाई जो मारो
ब्रेक का भी 5 मिनट
मैजिक ने बोला मैं सच में कर दूंगा
क्या
बोटे
वो नैतिक के पास है नहीं इसलिए मैं
क्या है
क्या नैतिक के पास नहीं है
क्या
वो नैतिक को जानता भी नहीं है
अरे कौन मैं
नहीं जानता ना नैतिक को
देखा बोल रहे हैं बहुत देख लो खुद कर रहे हैं
नहीं मिलेगा आज सिर्फ का
ये तो सारे मार पैंट के लाता है
नहीं वो लोग गए अभी
बोला
ईश्वर आयुष हाँ हाँ
ईश्वर आयुष
आयुष
मैम को बोलते ऐसे ही पढ़ सकते हैं क्या
मैम को बोलते हैं ऐसे लेट रहते हैं पढ़ाओ मत क्यों तेरे को कॉपी नहीं करना है
फोटो लेना एसी का दूर का
लाइव स्ट्रीम में जाकर लिखिए ना
तू बंद करी ना मारना तो गलत को
गर्मी लग रही है
फाइनली
देखो गर्मी लग रही है इसको गर्मी चल रही है
अरे तो गर्मी लगती है
नींद चल गई
तो गर्मी लग रही है
थोड़ी लग रही है
थोड़ी
पर एटलीस्ट गर्मी तो लगी
हम लोग का प्लाज्मा लाइसेंस हो गया है स्कूल में
अरे सिर्फ सोने तक एसी ऑन करके फिर बंद कर दिया
उस साइड पर
मैं कैसे विशेष पैसा है अभी कौन जाएगा नीचे चल साथ में जाके लेके आते हैं
टाइम नहीं है
10 मिनट है वो मैम ने 5 मिनट वेट किया
जगह है कुछ तो
चल मैं मेरी आदत है नींद
नीचे क्लास के बाद खाएंगे
उसको 20 रुपए देके एक पैकेट खाऊंगा
वो खाने की भी इच्छा नहीं होती
नाश्ते के बाद खाते
हां
ये कैसे बैठा तू बैठने ठीक से बोले थे अभी देखो मैम है तो पटाख से सिलेक्ट हो सकता हूं
मैं थोड़ा देखा आती हूं अभी देख थोड़ा
अरे वो फोन पे लगी है अपने उसका फोन भर में अच्छे में बचता है पता है तुमको
हां
अभी ये ना 1 बजे के बीच में कई बजता है अभी हां 2 बार बजता है
विशेष टाइम नोट करता है मैम फोन को बोल रहा है
अरे सच में मैं देखा था
फोन के चक्कर लगे पड़े बेचारे को बंद के बीच देखने में बचता है बीच का फोन तो मतलब इतना बचता है इतने खराब हो जाता है
ये आ गया
तेरे को क्या हुआ है तेरे को क्या हुआ ऑपरेशन नहीं करा
नहीं कर
अरे उसको मैंने तोड़ दिया
नहीं मेरे
क्लास में जाए तो
मैं मुझे
नहीं
दस मिनट बाद होने के बाद
नहीं ऑर्डर किया है
कौन सा किया
देखो ये तो एडमी का फायदे नहीं रियल नहीं है
ये तो प्लाज्मा लाइसेंस हो गया
वो गया
याद भी नहीं आ रहा कौन
से 5 मिनट बचे निकले तब वो सुन मिले 5 मिनट मिल जाएंगे
मैं तुम लोग मैं नहीं करूँ उतनी ताकत नहीं है खर्चा देख ले
गाड़ी पर लगा
नहीं मेरे को जाना ही नहीं है मेरे पेंसिल
ये पेन क्या है ये इधर नहीं करने का ये दूर पैर छोड़ पैर छोड़ क्या हाथ क्या पूरा
ये लोग सो रहे हैं
क्या कर रहे हैं आज भी
ये नया हेयर स्टाइल ब्रो मैं हटो यार
क्या तुम्हारे ये कूदने का नहीं कूदने का क्या खाने
मरो यार
क्योंकि मैम को बनाना चाहिए
नहीं ठंडी लगे ठंडी है ठंडी को लग रही
ये उल्टा कब से हो गया
पहले ना
दुनिया की आत्मा
काकी कोने में क्यों बैठा है अगर सबसे ज्यादा गर्मी है क्या
पहले इधर जितनी गर्मी है ना उससे कम गर्मी
नहीं
इधर
मैं
है।
वैसे बोलूंगा मैम को घुसने ही नहीं देते क्लास में दरवाजे पे
और
मैं भाई
क्या हो रहा है ये भी
अरे मेरी बुक क्यों डाल रहा है उसमें दूसरे की बुक लेके जा रहा है
मेरी बुक है वो
अरे तुम अच्छी बुक नहीं लाए ए तू वो बुक लाया नहीं दूसरे की बुक भर रहा है
जिंदा जला दूंगा तेरे को फेसबुक के तरह हम बैठ
जिंदा चलाने का
मेरी बुक है
क्या
मीडिया रे लोड़ी और बुक तो ये
मैंने भी वैसे
उधर
यहाँ पे कुछ भी नहीं है
उधर किसी को घुसा देते हैं मैं
देखिए
क्या
यहाँ
है
पे
क्या है तू क्या बोला वो तो बोल रहा है वो बंदी का नाम पता चल गया वो दिखा दो वैसे पता चला वो चला जाता है इंस्टाग्राम पर ये एक बार देख ले तो चला जाता है चल सच में
बारिश को तो रखा है
हम लोग का चैट लिस्ट पे रहता है मेरा मैजिक कभी भी वीडियो आते
क्या होते हैं
अरे राज
हाँ
गाने वक्त ना एक दूसरे को मजा आता है
आज सोया वो ये मेरे को देखना
उनके साथ है
ये राज
विशेष क्या एक बार अरे नहीं करता मैं टाइट हो गया
तो कौन फेंक रहा है एक दूसरे पे काय करतो दूसरे को ये घ्यायला येतस
तुझ्याकडे अंडी नाही पडायची दुसऱ्यांची विकतो
कळलं तुला काय बोललास तू
दुसऱ्यांची अंडी विकतो एक दिवस जेलमध्ये
लिखात नाही कळलं तुला तू काय बोलतोस ते
आगे
अरे खाना
ये हम लोग के लिए लेकर आए ये क्या है
15 का पैसा दे देता तेरे को याच्यात एक पैकेट दे याच्यात 10 रुपये देता है तेरे को पैकेट दे दे 15 देगा उसका
भाई
अरे भाई लेवल देखो अरे एवढा फ्राइडे इसको ले लो अरे तुम लोग पागल हो दिमाग में ना एक दो ये चीज देगा तो मैं जिसको मेरी बात एक ही बात है दादा
भाई तो खाना ना मांगे ये गरीब को इतना नहीं हम रहे तेरे को
ये गाड़ी में दे दे कैश में रख ऊपर पर
लोग आर्टिस्ट बोलते हैं लोग लाने के बस पैसा
अरे हरामी होता ये
हाँ,
हरामी से
हाँ।
मैच जीता ना मोटा हमारी हमारी जब पूजा पार्टी कर हमारी होता कितना भी करा अरे आते चाहते 3 मैच
अरे हाँ
इस बार तो नहीं यार अपना हैदराबाद
साले वो साले हम लोग अभी एक क्या रहा है शुरू कर रहा है उठा के छोड़
भाई तो आईसीएसई अरे उधर भूल है आर्यन
मेरा क्या है मैं तो नहीं दिया था इसलिए कर दिया
मैं
अरे वो दूसरे वाले हैं।
बुढ़ा नहीं स्विंग मत कर उसको
अरे तुम लोग
मैंने ट्रेलर देना
ये उठा के दो भाई ये ना बता ये चिंकू
अरे भाई पीछे गिरा हुआ है नहीं वो क्या
ए हाथ पर रेड अरे यार नहीं गिरा खाना क्या फेंक
लगा फेंक रहे हो हाथ में है ना ले तेरा
वो सब चलो
चलो इतने यार बोलो के
ये तुम लोगों ने मिस कर दिया अभी भी आपको ठंडा गर्मी हो रही है बहुत अच्छा ये तो रिंकू
क्या
नहीं खाना
रिंकू किधर
वॉशरूम
ये
कौन ये किसका बॉटल है
क्या बोल रहे हैं हां भाई क्या
मेरे को कैंसर हो रहा है
कैंसर
oh no
एक बड़ी गाड़ी हो रही है
what stage 1 2 3
अरे
your mom
100 लेवल पर है वो
oh no वो he will die in 2 minutes
मामा है।
बंद कर दिया he will die in 2 minutes
लगे तो भी
मामा है इसलिए।
अरे अल्ट्रा में कैप्टन कर ले मुंडा कैसा
क्या हुआ?
हमको एक ही चाहिए
इसको
2 लोग खा रहे
नहीं चाहिए इसी चाहिए। हाँ तो ऑन करो ना। आप ऑन किया था ब्रेक के साथ। हाँ
तो
हाँ।
ब्रेक
बंद किया अब क्यों बंद किया
ये बंद कर दो पहले because I am still having my throat problems energy stuff. इसको बंद करो if you are not too hot इसको बंद करो and then इसको ऑफ कर दो ऑन करो हाँ ठीक है you are comfortable now so can we start
yes
so what did we study the 5 conditions the 5 benefits that the plant enjoys when we are talking about the turgid condition. So what are the 5 conditions? We'll solve some questions. Many different concepts, questions on these concepts you will get. So the basic thing is about turgidity. What is another concept that you have studied? Turgidity followed by cell-to-cell osmosis and flaccidity, plasmolysis, deplasmolysis. So these are some of the concepts in all these subtopics that we have understood. Now, next is another concept is there that will come across next, that is
pressure in the roots
so again some more activities we have to study here, but related to the direction in which the water moves. Okay, the direction in which the water moves. So let us start with that. So the movements we have done. Now let us start talking about root pressure. Look in before that. Look into by the time they come. Page 55. Page 55. Take question number 8 now. Take question number 8. 55, question number 8. And number 7 also you can do. Number 7, number 8. Okay, and let's see in your book, it should be something similar. Number 7, number 8, and in your book also 3.16, 3.16, number 15, 3.16, number 15, 3.17, 23, 3.16, 15, 3.17, 23. Correct. Application of what we have studied in the previous lecture. Complete this first. We complete these 2 questions. Just tell me which are the 2 questions I asked. It's your problem. 2 questions you solve. See if it is understood. Done? Okay. You got the answers for both the questions. That is number 7, number 8 I asked you to do. Number 7, number 8. Complete number 8. Did you do those 2 questions? Huh? Not understood? Okay. And now number page 53. Come to page 53, Selena. Page 53. Question C. Short answer type. Can you see there? Short answer type difference. Now this you will write in your notebook. Take out your notebook, all of it. Differentiate between plasmolysis and deplasmolysis. Only one point major, 1.2 write down. Plasmolysis and deplasmolysis. What are we supposed to write? Plasmolysis. What is plasmolysis? What is the major difference you will write down?
Which there is an excess loss of water from the cell, while deplasmolysis is the process by which there is a gain in water.
Make a column, all of you. Differentiate between the following. You are supposed to write all these questions. You're going to write it down in the notebook. The differences you are going to write in the notebook. The first question is plasmolysis and deplasmolysis. The first question is plasmolysis and deplasmolysis. Right up. Under plasmolysis, what are you supposed? You are to basically write the difference based on the phenomena plasmolysis and deplasmolysis. Write down. Write down. Write down. The first one, plasmolysis. Under plasmolysis, you will write the condition of a cell. The condition of a cell caused due to excessive loss of water when placed in a strong hypertonic solution which leads to shrinkage of cell membrane from cell wall. Deplasmolysis, shrinkage of cell membrane from cell wall. Do you still remember? We were talking about the plasmolyzed cell, where I said in case of a plasmolyzed cell, what happens? The cell wall and the cell membrane, they become separate. I told you, no? Deplasmolysis. Under that, the recovery of a plasmolyzed cell. Recovery of a plasmolyzed cell when placed in a hypotonic solution or pure water. When placed in a hypotonic solution or pure water, comma, which leads to inflow of the water and revival of cell sap in the vacuum. And revival of cell sap in the vacuum. Okay, next is, come to the next question. Turgor pressure, wall pressure. That you will be able to write. What was the definition? Now here you will write only the definition. Turgor pressure, what was it? Pressure of cell contents on the cell wall. What was wall pressure? Pressure of cell wall on cell contents. Likho. Second difference is on Turgor pressure and wall pressure. Second difference is of turbo pressure, wall pressure. Write down the complete definition. Next, hypertonic and hypertonic solution. Hypotonic and hypertonic solution. Improve your writing. This is not the way you are supposed to write. Rough or fair नहीं. अगर तुम्हारा rough handwriting ऐसा है, fair handwriting इससे थोड़ा ही बेहतर होगा. Pearls नहीं बन जाएगा, है ना? So now focus on the way that you write. This matters. Not only correct answer, but how you write. That also matters. Now hypotonic and hypertonic. Concentrate, all of you. I give you writing work also to improve little bit on your presentation. Make a habit of writing answers clear, neat. Diagrams, very few you have, not too many to be drawn. But those diagrams of the cell, etc., but a little bit clear you have to draw, neat it has to be, and exactly what is asked in the question. Hypotonic, hypertonic, fast, tell me what to write. Hypotonic solution, what will you write? A solution which has, what to write you first tell me, don't just copy down what I am telling.
A solution is a no solvent less solute.
A solution, it is relative, remember, tonicity is a relative concept. So hypotonic I have to define. Now you are saying a solution which has higher amount of solvent. That's it?
And less solute.
That's it? That's it? Relative concentration meaning, what did I explain you?
Compared to
You have to compare with some other medium or a cell. Otherwise, how do you understand? Say suppose I am talking about Rahul is taller and broader. Finish my sentence. Did you understand anything? Rahul is taller. Full stop. Is my sentence complete? Why not? I'm talking about taller, but I'm not comparing with anybody. When I say that taller, shorter, fat, thin, that means we are comparing, no, with something. Same like this, remember, these definitions when you write, I told you also in the previous class, it is a relative concept, meaning with reference to something you have to write. So hypotonic, I think the other day I asked you also write this. Hypotonic solution, a solution which has higher concentration of water and less amount of or lesser concentration of solutes as compared to a cell. Always you have to define that way, right? Hypotonic and hypertonic. So what is meant by hypotonic solution? What is a hypotonic solution? If I am talking about hypertonic, is it talking about a solution? Let me see. Solution. Hypotonic solution. Or you may write this way, in this solution, the concentration of solute is lesser and solvent is higher as as compared to a cell. As in comparison with a cell. Did you understand what I'm telling you? So if this is hypotonic, then hypertonic, how should I write? Hypertonic क्या लिखेंगे बोलो? Not understood? Hypotonic, I said, hypotonic always means dilute. So I said, 1 minute, he's not clear about this. Now hypotonic, what I told you just now, hypotonic solution means a dilute solution. Dilute means the water content is higher. Solute, sugar, salt. Solute concentration is lesser. But since just like I told Rahul is taller, तो इसको हम एक खाली solution के हिसाब से नहीं लिख सकते. We have to compare it with a set. So I'm saying hypotonic solution. In this solution, concentration of water is higher and solute is lesser as in a cell or as compared to a cell. आया समझ में? हाइपो मतलब डाइल्यूट है, तो अगर ये हो गया हाइपोटोनिक तो हाइपरटोनिक कैसे लिखेंगे? रिवर्स होगा, एग्जैक्टली रिवर्स है. तो हाइपरटोनिक व्हाट विल बी राइट फॉर हाइपोटोनिक? बोलो हाइपर
Solution outside the cell has higher solution.
No, that is not the correct definition. No,
Fluids inside the cell.
हाँ बोलो.
Solution outside the cell has higher solute concentration than the fluids inside.
Then the fluids inside the cell. Hypertonic solution, in this solution, concentration of solute is high. Then solvent or then water as a cell. If you understand the concept, you can write in your own words. You don't have to follow the words of the sentences of the book. Try to understand. When we are talking about hypo, we are talking about less of solute, more of water. Hyper, less of water, more of solids. So if I basically talk about water only, hypo matlab more water than a cell. Hyper, less water than a cell. आया समझ में? लिखो. Write on your own. You may start your sentence like this: in this solution. In this solution, because you are comparing with the cell. In this solution, your concept should be कौन सा? Hyper. बोलो, define.
In this solution, the concentration of the solute is greater than the solvent as compared to a cell.
Concept clear होगा. हर एक answer you should write very clear, very correct. What is the highest percentage in your school? Are you aware about the answers, result at ICSE?
Yes,
Highest percentage क्या है?
99.6.
So is that inspiring you? Yes or no?
Yes, ma'am.
All these sadhus sitting here, is this inspiring you?
Yes.
Don't smile. You all have the potential. खाली work hard करो. पोता highest percentage क्या है?
98.2.
हाँ, Kushagra was a student. So he was a real good student, I should tell you. Real good. उसको पढ़ा के जो अच्छा लगता था, मजा आता था, and every end. I mean, वो एक ऐसा बच्चा था where you can't find any flaw in him. Everything so nice. You all are also very smart, very good. But work hard, work hard, work hard. Every subject you should put in a lot of effort. Now we will shout, then only you will sit to show that I am studying. ऐसे करने से नहीं. You should love to study. You should love to study. How many of you love to study? अरे बाप रे, so scary. No? Not at all? No? हाँ
If it is an interesting chapter, then sure.
अच्छा सिलेबस अभी तुम्हारे इंटरेस्ट से बनाएगा हाँ syllabus is framed in such a way that children from one batch has the opening for 100 different jobs. तो अभी अगर तुम्हारे इंटरेस्ट से बनाएगा तो तुमको अलग से ही कुछ सिलेबस फ्रेम करके अलग से ही तुमको पढ़ना पड़ेगा. In the 10th and the 12th standard, the syllabus will be as such that children, after reading this entire syllabus, they can choose up different stream and different jobs. तो उसमें obviously variety of chapters रहेगा, and obviously in those variety of chapters, how many chapters in the 10th standard? Out of these chapters, yes, there will be 8-9 chapters you will like, another 5-6 chapters you will not like. But you have to read those chapters which you don't like even more than the ones that you like. The subjects that you find difficult, you have to read more than the subject that you find it easy and you like it. After the exam, now this has happened to quite a number of students of our batch, of UT, my students. They missed the 100 mark just by one, just by two. So now they are saying, ma'am, थोड़ा सा और अगर मेहनत कर लेते तो 100. तो अभी वो मेहनत, you must have tried your best. Now don't repent. But now the time is there. Don't wait for any bell to ring. Start studying. Start studying. ICSE, you have to study actually a lot. तुमको देख के लग रहा है you have already given up. Why there is no enthusiasm, no zeal on your face? हाँ? और this चश्मे वाले देखो, चश्मा है but पढ़ना अच्छा नहीं लगता है. हाँ, these two चश्मे वाले, they are very serious. Boys, be very serious enough. How many of you love to study? Raise your hand, otherwise I am putting you out of the class. No parent should tell you, a 14-15-year-old boy, no parent, put down, enough, I saw already. No parent should tell you sit to study, and if they say, it's a shame for you. Shame for you. You know how many subjects and how many chapters you have to study, you know already. And you know how many months, how many weeks, how many days left, that also you know. You know already the format of the question. खाली एक chapter पढ़ाना बाकी है और तुमको समझना बाकी. Only that is left till the month of February. This is a lighter month. How many of you have gone through the chapters that we have already finished? Let me talk about my subject only. We had finished structure of chromosomes. We had finished cell division, genetics. How many of you have gone through these chapters? किसी ने कोई डाउट ही नहीं पूछा. मैं इतना अच्छा पढ़ाती हूँ क्या? Everybody has understood everything. ये तो possible नहीं है बिल्कुल भी. Why do you look so sad? Why are you so serious? A 14-15-year-old boy should not be so serious. Why so serious? He's like this in school also.
I'm not in his division.
Not in his division. तुम उसके साथ हो? ये ऐसा है, स्कूल में भी ऐसा है? सीरियस नहीं है ना? हाँ. वो मार खाएगा. Raise your doubts, your questions. Unless and until you have doubts, how can you clarify? How can you know the topic better? I'm teaching you, I'm giving you questions you are solving, how much you are reading, how much you are clear about the topics. Now see, this month you are a little bit free, no school. Whatever chapters are over, keep reading. At least once you read, go through the questions. At least 40% you are more or less clear about the chapter. Then again revision, then again revision, then again revision. That will make you, that will make your concept absolutely clear in the chapter. Now when school is on, with school, and then UT, and then the test, and then the exams, it will be quite stressful for you. So now, before your school reopens, at least make an effort. Whatever chapters in different subjects have been over, read at least once. And now that you come here for the lectures, don't only have that mentality बस जाना है 6 घंटे बस सुन के आना है, जाना है सीख के आना है. That should be your attitude. You are sitting here 6 hours, and if you are not learning things and going home, waste of time, no, for you. Now done, all of you did. Number 2 over. Hypertonic, hypotonic over. Now what is the next one? Turgidity, flaccidity, what to write? Turgidity. What is turgidity? What did we learn? What is turgidity? Turgid क्या था? हाँ, बोलो turgidity and flaccidity.
Because the cell wall is in fully distended condition.
Distended. So now that we are talking about turgidity, a state of a cell, understand first. What did we say? If it is a turgid cell, it has already taken a whole lot of water by endosmosis. The cell is fully tight. When we say a cell is fully tight, how do we show this is a cell and the cell is fully tight? Means the vacuole is quite big enough. But what about the cell wall? This is the cell wall. The cell wall is also fully tight. What about the cell membrane? The cell membrane very close to the cell wall. These would be the features of a turgid cell. What will you write? What is a turgid cell? What is a turgid condition? Turgidity, what it is? A state of a cell when it cannot accommodate any more water and it is tight filled with water. It cannot accommodate any more water. The cell wall and the cell membrane are in close contact and the cell wall is fully distended. The cell wall is fully distended. Likho. When we are talking about turgidity, write down. A state of the cell when it cannot take in a state of the cell when it cannot take in any more water, cannot take in any more water by endosmosis, cannot take in any more water by endosmosis, and the cell wall is fully stretched or distended. Fully stretched or distended. Fully stretched or distended. Distended means it's fully stretched and tight. The other side, flaccidity. Flaccidity. Condition of a cell in which the cell contents are shrunken, the cell contents are shrunken, volume of sap is reduced, volume of sap reduced, volume of sap reduced, and the cell wall is no more tight. The cell wall is no more tight. Cell wall is no more tight. That is what is known as flaccidity, the condition. I'm sorry, for the previous turgidity that you have written, you should not write state, condition. Turgidity, flaccidity, these are conditions. State is turgid and flaccid. For example, you are shown this type of a cell. Name the state of the cell, turgid. Name the condition, turgidity. If I talk about flaccid, same way. Remember, flaccidity is a condition of a cell. And this condition relates to the shape, state of a cell, that is turgid or flaccid. Just remember this basic concept. Now we talk about root pressure. We'll solve some more questions after some time. We talk about root pressure. So when we are talking about root pressure, to understand root pressure, we have to now come across that what is root pressure, what is the basic definition of root pressure. So we are saying that these are the root cells. Root hair cells. Already at the first lecture of the chapter, we had already started with this saying that what is the reason why the root hair cells are constantly taking in water from the soil, and the most important reason was the hypertonicity or the hypertonic condition of the cells. Now that the process of osmosis happens, is happening, this first cell will gather a huge amount of water. Now that it reaches the ultimate limit where it cannot take any more water, what will this condition of the cell be known as? Turgid. The cell is turgid. Now that the cell is turgid, what will happen? Now again, I talk about this one. Now that the cell is turgid, what will happen to this particular cell? Now this is one cell which is turgid, and how will this particular cell behave now? It will start giving away water to the next cell. So this cell, the vacuole also now increases. So now that we talk about root pressure, because the process of water entering into the root hair cell, hypertonic condition will only allow the water to enter into the root hair cell. But this root hair cell which gathers a lot of water, this develops a pressure. What is that pressure? The root pressure. So because every root hair cell becomes turgid because of endoosmosis, there is a pressure developed, and this pressure developed is known as the root pressure, which is allowing the cell to cell osmosis. So what is root pressure? The minimum pressure which allows, or the pressure which develops at the root cells, which allows the cell to cell osmosis happen. But then the question again is that why is this cell to cell osmosis necessary? Why is it necessary? The cell to cell osmosis is necessary because it is by this process only how the water will keep moving from the root to the stem, stem to the branches, branches to the twig, twig to the leaf. I already told you in previous one or more context that whenever we talk about the process of osmosis at one particular root hair cell, that will not be a pressure good enough for the upward movement of the water. So if I have to talk about the upward movement of the water in any plant, I have to first understand what is majorly happening at the level of the root hair cells. Yes, a process known as osmosis. Then next one. Now from one cell to another, what is happening? Now we are talking about a process known as cell-to-cell osmosis. And this is the process by which the water will constantly keep on moving up. Now that if I talk about the cells of the xylem, from this the water moving up, water moving up, water moving up, water moving up. Now the water rises up by the xylem. The movement is always unidirectional upward, those things you already know. So this entire process of movement of the water is what is known as the ascent of sap. Cell-to-cell osmosis can only bring about the ascent of sap. Is it a very essential process for a plant? Very much. It is a very essential process. So now we start talking about this. What is root pressure? Root pressure is the pressure which allows root pressure is the pressure which allows the continuous endosmosis relating or bringing about the cell-to-cell osmosis and carrying out the process of ascent of sap. So root pressure के साथ cell-to-cell osmosis and ascent of sap, both the things you have to relate and complete your answer. What is root pressure? The pressure developed at the roots. which brings about the endosmosis, followed by cell-to-cell osmosis and ascent of cell. Is this clear? Take the definition of root pressure. You have to remember all these definitions very nicely. Okay, now one thing to remember in this diagram you have in your book also. I want all of you to tick this diagram and remember this diagram very nicely. Sometimes you are asked to label the parts of this diagram, names of the cells you are asked. So what is the sequence in which the water would move? Now that there is adequate root pressure. Now that there is adequate root pressure in the root hair cells. The root hair cells, osmosis is happening. Now, what is the sequence of cells? Let us understand. This is the root hair cell, water entering, followed by the epidermal cells. Then where does the water go? Cells of the cortex or the cortical cells, followed by cells of the endoderm. This is the endodermis. Cells of the endoderm. Then enter the cells of the xylem. Then enter the cells of the xylem. So which is the sequence of cells we are talking about? Root hair cells, cells of the cortex, cells of endoderm or endodermis, followed by cells of the xylem. So take the diagram also that you have. We will solve some questions later on this. Now we are talking about certain concepts of upward movement. Now we want to talk about certain few experiments which talk about the ascent of conduction, upward conduction of water. Now in this we are trying to find out some few activities, some few experiments. Let us talk about the first one. What is done here? We take two test tubes. The first activity, the first experiment we are talking about. What are we trying to understand? 2 or 3 parameters in this experiment. One parameter we are going to understand that is it the xylem which is necessary for the ascent of sap. Second, are roots playing an important role in the ascent of sap? This is the second thing that we are going to come across. And something more that we come across in another related aspect, that does the phloem have any role in the entire process of conduction of the water or not? So all 2-3 things we are going to come across in all these experiments. The first experiment that we talk about, see here. What are we trying to understand? Take 2 test tubes, equal amount of water. In one, place a shoot which should have roots, should have intact roots. Put a layer of oil over the surface of the water in both. In one test tube, no need of taking any shoot. Wait for a period of time, 5-6 hours to wait. After a period of 5-6 hours, what are we observing? In the first test tube, we are observing that the water level would go down a little bit. In the second, we understand that nothing has changed. We did not see any remarkable change happening. And we did not put any shoot here because this is considered as a control experiment. Control experiment means the setup is as such which will not give you any observation after the experimental period of time. So that way you can compare also with your main setup. Now what? Now we try to understand that what must have happened. Explain the condition. What will you explain? Why did the level of water go down? The level of water went down preferably because these leaves have lost water by the way of transpiration. These leaves have lost water by the way of transpiration. Now related to this, one concept that you need to understand would be this is a plant. I talk about a plant here. This plant has got the branches and etc. etc. Now, what are we only trying to understand is the position of the xylem, phloem, and the movement. Now, just 2-3 things that I'm trying to tell you. Try understanding. I am talking about the xylem here. Why do I prefer to draw exactly in the center? Because whenever I'm talking about the xylem in the root, the xylem in the stem, branches, are more or less placed in the center. And xylem is an arrangement of how many type of cells? 4 types of cells. Naam yaad hai? Okay, tracheids, vessels, main type of cells to remember. So now you understand that these are the type of cells which help in the process of conduction. So now I'm saying that the xylem is placed in the center. What about the phloem? The phloem would be more or less, the phloem will be always on the other side. You know, the phloem is always on the other side. So I may understand that the phloem is on the either side of the xylem is the phloem, and the phloem would always remain connected with the leaves. So we are not talking about the phloem right now. So this xylem, all these parameters one after the other, all these functions one after the other. The cell undergoing the process of osmosis first, endoosmosis, followed by cell-to-cell osmosis. Then what? The water entering into the xylem cells. The water entering into the xylem cells. Here is one particular property that we are understanding in the last part of the chapter. You will come across that when we are talking about the movement of the water molecules, try understanding the water molecule that will rise up will always move in a train. The water molecule will not move as single molecules ever in the xylem. They always move in a train. There's a particular property that we are talking about. So these water molecules which move in a train, this also is responsible for the movement of water or ascent or sap in tall trees. This is one factor. The movement of water in tall trees. Now say suppose we talk about our buildings. Now most of you must be also living in the 10th and the 12th and the 11th. So now if I'm talking about those higher floors, how does the water from our tank go up there? With the help of some devices, machines are there, to draw the water up there. What about a plant? Where is the machine? No machine, no. It is these different type of forces only which is drawing the water to such great heights. The water is drawn to such great heights. So what is one property I'm telling you? The water that gets into the xylem will always move together in a trail, all of them. But now we are trying to understand this concept. We are trying to understand this concept, saying why did the water get or why did the water level in the test tube decrease? Because now that I talk about the water loss from here by a process known as transpiration, so this entire trail will move up together. The entire trail will move up together. Okay, so when the entire, meaning the loss of water molecules in this place is replaced. So if this is moving together, then there is obviously an empty space created here. The rate of transpiration is creating a suction force here. So this suction force, what will we call this suction force as? This is known as transpirational pull. And because of this transpirational pull, the rate of osmosis also will speed up. So will this transpirational pull remain the same on a hot summer day and a monsoon day? No. No, obviously. So on a hot summer day, as of now, the rate of transpiration is high. So also the transpirational pull, so also osmosis. So this space needs to be filled up as soon as possible because there is loss of water at this end. In monsoon, what's happening? The loss is very small, force generated very less, and though the soil has so much of water at that time, but the intake will be much lesser. Is this concept clear? So believing all these happening, so now what's happening here? The roots are constantly absorbing water and the water is lost from the leaves. That is what is responsible for the level of water getting decreased in the beaker, in the test tube. And this already we said. Why the level of water is not getting decreased? Because there is no shoot that we have taken, no plant we have taken. So there is no release or there is no uptake of water. What is the significance of putting this layer of oil? So that surface water should not evaporate. Now try to understand again. You will be always asked this question. This is a common question that you are asked. What is the significance of the layer of oil? And you are writing to prevent surface evaporation. Just think, if you don't put this layer of oil, then what happens? We are not putting this layer of oil. Then the water drop will be even more remarkable. Because if almost about 30% of water loss is this way, 50% of water loss will be from the surface, because evaporation is a much faster process if the temperature is high like this. So now the water drop is much more. Are we actually measuring water loss by leaves? No, now two things are working at the same time. Leaves also, evaporation. We don't want evaporation happen. So that's why we are putting a layer of oil there. Understood? We move on to the next one. In this case, what are we doing? The second experiment, check there. That is 4.16. Huh? Keep taking one after the other. We are going to discuss all of them. Try to understand. One question from this you will definitely see in your papers every time. These are some of the experiment-based questions. Often and often they are asked. Now, in this case, what happens? What did we come across? What are we to understand? In this case, we take some colored solution in a beaker. A colored solution, we take colored water. Water where we are putting certain amount of dye, a paint. Now, we are taking certain amount of dye, a coloring agent we are taking. And then we allow a particular shoot to remain inserted, where the root part remain inserted for a couple of hours. And then we are not, in this experiment, we are not analyzing whether the water is lost and whether the water is dropping or not. But we are only, after a particular period of time, we make a section of the root, we make a section of the stem, and we make a section of the leaf. Now in this experiment, in this activity, you get to see that the leaves also appear to have this reddish or pink color. In most of the plants, when we do this experiment, except for one or two plants, most of them will not show this color. If the leaves are a bit thicker, they will not show this red-pink color at all. Unless and until we take only one or two leaves which are very thin, then only they show the color. But then how do we understand that whether the water is going up or not? So after a particular period of time, is the level of the water in the beaker dropping? Will it drop? Here also the water level will drop. But here we are not trying to test whether the water level is dropping because of transpiration exactly or not. But in this case, we are more interested to know that what is the major agent for the process of, or what is the major tissue for the process of transport, for the process of ascent of cell. So when we cut down the root part and the stem part and the leaf part in sections, we get to see something similar like this. Check the figure. If I talk about the section of the root, a particular tissue almost in a circle, almost in a ring-like arrangement. Can you see the figures there? There's a section of the root shown, there's a section of a leaf shown, and there's a section of the stem shown. Did you see? Root, stem, leaf. Three sections are shown. Yes or no? Could you all find that? So now, when you talk about the section of the root, what is there? In the section of the root, there is a small arrangement of cells in the center which have taken up that dye, which have taken up that stain. Other than that, the surrounding cells are not colored at all. For the stem, section of the stem again, there is just a ring of cells which are colored, which have taken up the dye. A ring of cells only. Look into the diagram. Only a ring of cells have taken up the dye. Yes? Are the arrangement of the xylem exactly the same in the root and the stem? No, little bit different. And in case of the leaf, the arrangement is little bit different again. They are not exactly in the center. Bit away from the center. They are near the midribs. But if all the three parts make a section of this, this and this, we get to see that there is one common type of a tissue there is one common type of a cell which is getting stained all over. Now, why are they getting stained all over? Because it is this particular tissue which forms a continuous tube. The arrangement here and here is almost the same, in the leaf little bit away from the center. Only that is the difference. But there is a common feature, that is, this is the tissue which is conducting the water. Since they have been conducting the water for a particular period of time, that's why these cells have become color active at the time. What do we conclude from this experiment? That xylem conducts water. It is the xylem which conducts the water. Come to the next. Come to the next. Now we are talking about the next experiment. Now in this next experiment, what do we try understanding? We take 2 beakers half filled with water, a clamp and a stand. Then we take a part of a shoot. We take a part of a shoot. What are you busy with? We take a part of a shoot. In this part of a shoot, we scrap off, say suppose a 3 centimeter length, we select first. In the stem part, select 3 centimeter of the length and then just scrap out the outer lining, just the outer tissue, just scrap out the outer lining. Keeping in mind that the inner tissue should not be disturbed at all. The inner tissue should be intact. Just a one layer, meaning something like those bark layers are there, just take it out. Cut, and just try to take out. And try keeping the inner tissue intact. What about the second one that we do? In the second one, we try making an incision right in the center and make hollow, trying to disturb the inner part, keeping the outer part intact. Okay, so what are we doing? We just try with a sharp knife, scrap out a small portion from the center and make it hollow from both the ends. Outer tissue should remain intact, not disturbed at all. Wait for some period of time, 5 to 6 hours again. After that, what do we get to observe is that the leaves in the first setup, they are still fresh. And right in the previous lecture also I told you that the moment we talk about this type of an arrangement of the leaves, we understand that the cells are turgid. Cells are turgid meaning continuous ascent of sap is happening and continuous inflow of the water is happening. All the cells are getting adequate amount of water. What about this side? Why did the leaves wilt? The process of movement of the water or ascent of sap must have been disturbed. Now we try understanding that why did it disturb? Because this particular tissues were destroyed. This particular tissues, now we started making a hollow in the middle. So we had tried disturbing these particular tissues and the xylem became discontinued. So whatever amount of water must have entered or filled in, they could not reach the upper part of the plant's leaves, and the reason for the wilt. Why this remained fresh? Because the xylem was intact. So what do we understand from this activity? Xylem is always centrally placed and phloem is on the either side. That also we will come across now next. Now in the next activity, we come across that again, select another plant. And in this plant, what are we doing? The stem should be a little bit broader. In this plant, a potted plant, the stem should be a little bit broader. And in this experiment, what are we doing? Scrap out the outer portion. Again, select a small length and scrap out the outer bark portion nicely, keeping in mind that the inner portion should not be disturbed at all. Exactly like this. Exactly like this. Now, after some time or after now, this process will not happen in hours. It takes weeks to show a considerable result. Weeks or even months to show a particular result. Now, if it is a small potted plant, the change will be very, very negligible, I should say. But this is something that we all see on those big plants also, if you have noticed. When these plants are cut out this way, the upper part of the plant and the lower part of the plant both shows a remarkable change. Now look into this. When I talk about the upper part of the plant, now what is happening to the upper part of the plant? The upper part of the plant will develop a swelling here. Upper part of the plant will develop a swelling here, known as girdling. Because we have discontinued which tissue here, xylem or phloem? Phloem, because phloem is outwardly placed. Now we have not disturbed the xylem at all. The phloem is outwardly placed, and where is food prepared in the plant? In the upper part or the lower part? Upper part, no. So now in the upper part, in the leaves of the food is prepared. The food is traveling from the leaves by the way of the phloem, and from the leaves the food by the way of phloem reaches the root and the stem. So we have discontinued the phloem tissue. So the food which is supposed to get transported from the upper part of the plant, is it able to reach the lower part of the stem and the roots? No. So this part of the plant is drying out progressively. This part of the plant is drying out progressively, and there is a swelling developed here. Accumulation of food. The cells are becoming overloaded with food. Too much accumulation of starch happening there, and this is what we are talking about as girdling. Girdling. So, what does this? What to conclude from this experiment? That phloem is the tissue which helps in the conduction of the food. If the phloem would have been continuous, then the roots also would have got adequate supply of the food and the stem, and this type of swelling would not have happened. No? Now the last concept that we talk about, now we try summarizing. Already we have been talking about so many forces, so many factors which are responsible for the conduction of the water, minerals. Now let us try understanding what are some of the factors which are responsible for ascent of sap. What are some of the factors responsible for ascent of sap? Let us first of all talk about root pressure. Is root pressure essential for ascent of sap? Did we study this? So we had already studied with the diagram on the root hair cell that if the process of, or if the root pressure is not developed, cell to cell osmosis will never happen. And if cell to cell osmosis does not happen, then this upward migration of course will not happen. Every cell should be filled with water, turgid, then only throws the water to the next. This is what happens. Root pressure very much. We talk about the next one. Cohesion and adhesion. Now, what is cohesion? What is adhesion? When we are talking about cohesion, I already told you that the water molecules which are moving in the xylem tubes always are connected to each other. They always move in a train. So the water movement is faster only because the water molecules are not moving single. If individual movement of the molecules would have happened, it would have taken a long time for these tall trees to get adequate amount of the water. It would have been a long time. No, but then they get adequate amounts of water in a short period of time because of this property that the water molecules show. The affinity of the water molecules, meaning if I talk about the water molecules always have a property of clinging to each other. The water molecules always have a property of clinging to each other. They always remain attached to each other, forming a chain, forming a train. Then what is adhesion? Adhesion means getting attached to something. No? Adhere when we say. So when we are talking about adhesion, what is adhesion? Adhesion means, say suppose I talk about that these water molecules at times, they may be something like this also. The water molecules at times, they may be something like this also, meaning the water molecules have got a great affinity for the cellulose. And these are the xylem cells, plant cells. Plant cells obviously made up of cellulose. The plant cell wall is obviously made up of cellulose. So these water molecules always have a tendency of sticking to the walls. If this is the xylem wall, the water molecule will always stick to the wall like this. Are you understanding what I am telling you? This will always have a tendency of sticking. Now that this take, this is also what is allowing, this is also allowing something like support, and the water molecules will not fall back. The water molecules will not scatter back and fall back. They will just keep moving upward, ascent of sap, and faster also. Faster also. So we have been talking about three primarily: the root pressure, cohesion, adhesion. Is this difference understood? No. Cohesion means the ability of the water molecule to remain attached to each other, forming a chain. That is cohesion. Adhesion means the affinity of the water molecules, the cellulose and the water molecules, they love each other very much. So they will always remain attached, stick, adhere, adhesion. So now these water molecules, they will always have a tendency to stick to the walls, cellulosic walls of the xylem tube. And this is actually giving them support so that they can rise up faster. Okay? Otherwise, every time if the water molecules, the chain would have scattered and fallen, the upper parts would have got water at a longer time. No? And what is the last one? Transpirational pull. What is it? Transpirational pull. What is it I told you? Transpirational pull. If I believe that there is a leaf here, then what is happening? These cells which are released, these water molecules which are released in the form of water vapor. These water molecules which are released in the form of water vapor, a process known as transpiration, no? A process known as transpiration, and this is generating a suction force here. तो यहाँ से जितने molecules release होगा, the trail will move up, creating an empty space every time at the roots. तो ये जो vacuum है, this has to be filled up again. तो यहाँ पे fill up होने के लिए pressure की जरूरत है. So what is this pressure? The transpirational pull. Higher the rate, higher the pressure, and higher the rate of osmosis. So there has to be a suction. There has to be a suction pressure, a pressure developed here. Then only the uptake of the water, the intake of the water will be faster. You take a juice bottle or the Tetra Pak juice and you put the straw inside and one end of the straw in your mouth. You just keep the straw in your mouth. Will the juice come in as it is? You'll have to keep sipping, sipping, sipping. As you are sipping, transpiration. As you are sipping, the juice is getting its entry inside. Osmosis, followed by cell to cell, and then ascent of sap. No? तो तभी जाके osmosis हो रहा है, and then ascent of sap हो रहा है. So are these four factors which are very much necessary for ascent of sap clear? So what are the four factors we have talked about? एक है root pressure, cohesion, adhesion, transpirational pull. Clear hai? Anything that is doubtful you will ask, but at the same time let us also complete with A and B. Karo, fatafat. Page 52, A and B. Let us do it together, we don't have too much time. Okay. Number one, all of you look into those set of questions. You also have some multiple choice questions in your book. MCQ है क्या? Check करो. नहीं? MCQ नहीं है. So then after this MCQ we'll move on to name the following. So you will try 3.14. Name the following. Try करो. Name the following. All of this. You have to share it with him. चलो. Now number one. Hydrostatic pressure of the cell sap on the cell wall is called. What are the options? Turgor pressure, wall pressure, osmotic pressure, atmosphere. The hydrostatic pressure of the cell sap on the cell wall is Turgor pressure. Next, when a cell is in a solution, shrinks, the loss and loses its shape, then the solution is the cell is shrinking. The cell is shrinking. Solution will be hyper. Process for which energy is required. Highest water potential is that of pure water, क्योंकि उसमें कोई solute नहीं है. Number 5, when the cells of a plant are fully distended, the condition is called cells of a plant are fully distended, fully distended. Turgidity होना चाहिए. अब turgidity जब ऑप्शन नहीं है तो deplasmolysis. Plasmolysis तो shrinkage है. पूरा स्टोरी के बाद तुम ये आंसर दे दो. सुबह से absorption करके मुझे लग रहा है कि I become a xylem tube. And you are talking about these type of answers. Read the question. If there's any doubt, you ask first. Then we move ahead. कौन सा? Potato osmoscope. Potato osmoscope is just an application question. That's not a topic at all. We will do when we do the questions. Okay, that's not a topic at all in your syllabus. This book has got many extra topics. This is a question that we will do when we solve the questions. Okay. Now read the question. Any doubt there? See that you read the questions properly whenever you are answering questions. Okay, read the question properly. Don't be in a haste to answer. We did number 5. Now we come to number 6. Which of the following creates a suction force? Transpiration. Number 7, the phenomena in which living or dead cells? Imbibition. Number 8, which of the following is a living semi-permeable membrane? Addition of salt to pickles is a method of killing bacteria by? Root pressure can be measured by using? Name the following color. 5 minutes. I'm sorry. Name the following. You also have named the following in your book. Keep doing all of them. You did finish already.
I haven't discussed about rotation.
Acha, I'll show you. करो पहले ये कर लो. Guttation, bleeding comes in the next chapter. Bleeding is there, no? Here also. Guttation, bleeding is there. चलो fast करो. You all have finished transpiration also?
Yes, sir.
Transpiration is done. And after that, where did they start? Where did they go? Genetics not over, no?
We need to count.
After that?
Genetics, cell division, absorption of plants, and transpiration.
Then after this transpiration, after this chapter,
We have started with photosynthesis and general introduction and we
So now what I'll do is, since absorption, transpiration, they are related, so after this chapter we'll take up transpiration and then I'll move on to circulatory system. Name the following. Keep telling me the questions one after the other. What are those? One by one. Chalo, start from there.
The condition of a plant is in a hypertonic solution, turgidity.
Hypertonic.
Hypotonic.
Hypotonic. Condition would be? Condition of a plant would be? Condition of a cell? Turgidity. Condition, we have to write turgidity. Condition, we will write here. Come to the next one.
The process by which
Intact
plant lose water in the form of droplets
from
the waste mass.
Okay, now we talk about, now since you have to answer the question, we talk about guttation. Now let us try understanding a basic difference between guttation, transpiration, bleeding. This is what you will be asked also. Now, when I'm talking about guttation, all of you had observed these type of droplets, no? Especially when we talk about cooler weather conditions or early morning. Nowadays also early morning we get to see this. So what is exactly happening? Number one, when I talk about any particular leaf, I am talking about any particular leaf. So what would be some of the specialized features of the leaf? There are some holes on the margins of the leaves, and every particular hole is more or less linked with the veins that we understand. So what are these pores on the leaves known as? These pores on the leaves are known as hydatodes. These small pores and openings on the leaf margins are known as hydatodes. They are also present on the tip of the leaf. So now that this particular leaf cell, now each of these leaf cells, they are having adequate amount of water. They have got that water from the xylem of the veins. But the excess water that is there, the excess water will come out of this pore in the form of a droplet. But if I have to explain transpiration, then I will say that the water is coming out in the form of vapor. The water is not coming out in the form of droplet if you have to study transpiration. But in case of guttation, what is happening? The water is coming out in the form of droplet. तो अब जब ये droplet की तरह आ रहा है, is this droplet also containing, or is the plant also releasing out salts and ions, or it is only water? What do you think it should be?
It should be
Salts and ions भी तो होगा, because we are talking about a droplet, and यहाँ पे only water in the form of vapor, no salts and ions. So now this is guttation, and some of the differences I already told you. If it is guttation, water is lost, excess water of a plant is lost in the form of droplets. Transpiration in the form of vapor. Guttation, water is lost both in the form of, or guttation loses both water and mineral salts. Transpiration loses only water in the form of vapor. And if it is guttation, specialized structures known as hydatodes are used. And if it is transpiration, then I am talking about on the undersurface, there are some specialized pores, and these specialized pores are known as stomata. This is one. Then what is bleeding? What is bleeding? Bleeding is an absolute different concept. When we are talking about a stem, majorly of a herb or a young shrub, of a herb or a young shrub, cannot be for big trees at all. Now, what do we do? A similar experiment we had seen with the manometer experiment also. So, what did we do? Say, suppose we now break this stem. Did you ever observe? When you break this stem, especially for a herb or a young shrub, small shrubs also, break it, you get to see immediately some amount of white substances or some colorless substances oozing out. So what is that process? That process is called bleeding. The loss of sap due to the injured plant parts. Whenever we are breaking the plant parts, cutting the plant parts, what happens? The xylem is exposed. But then the xylem tube already has got a whole lot of water in it. The xylem cells already has got a whole lot of sap in it. So that is what is oozing out. That is what is oozing out. That is what is oozing out. And if that is what is the process, this is what is known as bleeding. The loss of sap due to injury to plant parts. That is bleeding. Continue. Next question.
Condition opposite to turbidity, placidity.
Placidity. Next.
Loss of cells have through
Hydrathodes.
from the tip or margin of leaf is due to dehydration.
What is it? What did we study just now?
Guttation.
Guttation. So hydrathodes is always associated with guttation. Hydrathodes and guttation, stomata and
Transpiration.
transpiration. Next.
The process by which intact plants lose water in the form of droplets from leaf margin.
Again the same thing. Same thing you are saying, I think. Next, same question. Repeat. Okay, come to the next one.
The process by which water enters through
Osmosis.
The xylem, the tissue concerned with upward conduction of water in plant xylem.
Next. अच्छा, राज के पास अलग book है.
The term for the inward movement of solvent molecules to plasma membrane of a cell.
Inward movement of
solvent
into the
through the plasma membrane.
Through the plasma membrane. So osmosis or endoosmosis. Okay, continue.
The process by which molecules distribute themselves evenly within the space they occupy. Distribution.
What is it?
The process.
Diffusion. Diffusion. If that's all. Now one more. Karo.
The pressure which is responsible for the movement of water molecule across the cortical cells of the root is root pressure.
Root pressure. Okay. Done all this. I will look into your questions by the time you start with the other set of questions. Check. What is left? Now complete number 3. Okay, now complete number 2, number 3, number 4. Number 2, number 3, number 4. I'm talking about B. B number 2, 3, 4. If you have not finished. Those of you have not finished. Number 2, 3, 4. Name the following for the others who are using the other book. Name the following. A condition opposite to turgidity. Dispersal of seeds by explosive mechanism. Dispersal of seeds by explosive mechanism. Turgor pressure. Turgor pressure. With respect to this. Loss of cell sap through hydrothores. Guttation. And loss of cell sap from the injured parts. Bleeding. Plant tissue through which ascent of sap occurs. Ascent of sap takes place. Plant tissue through which ascent of sap takes place. This is not the answer. Tissue through which ascent of sap takes place. Silent. Tissue they are asking you, no? So you have to write xylem. Xylem. Next. Next is where is it? The process by which water enters into root hairs, osmosis. Process by which molecules distribute the same question, diffusion. Those of you are using the other book, page 2, 1.14. Keep writing down the answers. If you have done, very good. Next is the pressure which is responsible for the movement of water molecules across cortical cells. Root pressure is the same question there. Process by which intact plant cells lose water in the form of droplets. Guttation again. Movement of molecules from a region of high concentration to low concentration. Diffusion. And the phenomena by which living on dead cells, that is imbibition. A solution whose concentration is greater than that of the cell sap. Concentration is greater से always समझ में आना है. Solute is high. Hypertonic. Hyper. The structure that transports water through the cell to the plants. Structure that transports water. Structure they are saying. Soil to other parts of the plant. Now, structure means xylem. You cannot write plant parts. Process by which root hairs absorb water. Osmosis. There are repetitions also of the questions. Which question? Number C. The bending movements of certain flowers towards her. Turgor movement. The bending flower of the sunflower. The bending movement of the sunflower and all these typical movement of the flowers that we understand. Now, say suppose we talk about any type of a flowering plant, potted plants. If you all have observed, you talk about the sunflower, you talk about the chrysanthemum, any. These flowers, they're always growing towards the source of sunlight. You rotate the pot. put it near your, keep the flowers again towards your room. But in 2 to 3 days time, again they will take a bend towards the other side. That's a concept of Turgor movements followed by phototropism. But now with this chapter reference, you have Turgor movements. Turgor movements. What is this? Active and passive transport. If it is active transport, for what type of molecules, and if it is passive transport, for what type of molecules. Certain 2-3 points to understand. I am talking about passive transport. Passive transport means easy transport. Easy transport from a region of high to a region of low. Example, movement of water from soil to the root cell. Easy transport it is, because outside the root cell there is so much water. Inside the root cell, less water. So the water moves from a region of high to a region of low. Passive transport. Is the plant cell utilizing any extra energy molecule? Nothing. I talk about the cell has got small amount of minerals. The plant cell has got large amount of minerals. But the plant cell still wants to take these minerals. Already it has so much, but still it wants to take. The soil has got small amount. Movement will happen from small or a low region to high. So when the movement has to happen from low to high, the cell has to spend ATP, extra energy laga ke the plant will take it. But the plant still wants to take it, because these minerals are always necessary for various functions. So if it is active transport, always molecules are moving from a region of low to high. Is this an easy transport? No. We will say this is a transport against concentration gradient. इसको बोलते हैं movement against concentration gradient. Say suppose I talk about a steep hill. एक slope है, एक particular slope है. Now ये जो slope है, this type of movement is easy या this type of this directional movement is easy? यहाँ से यहाँ movement is easy, passive transport, easy movement. जिसमें कोई separate now see when we drive our cars also क्या करते हैं हम लोग? When it is a slopey road, आराम से चला जाता है without petrol also आराम से चला जाएगा गाड़ी almost. No, but extra petrol is needed when you have to take a steep slope. Why this way? Extra energy, lower to higher concentration, ATP required. Example, movement of ions, salts, various different type of minerals from the soil to the cell. Few questions which you will take as homework, you will try at home. The next class we are going to discuss them. Just take some of these. Most of them already we have finished. Differences we have finished. The first page we have already finished. Define we have finished. Give reason I want you to, now give reason I want all of you to write down the answers in the notebook. I will check the next day. Define and finish, no? Achha, root pressure only left. Tonicity also left. So definition, tonicity and root pressure you will complete, and only the give reason questions you will complete as homework. Those of you who are using Selena, those of you are using the other book, you will also find where the give reason question becomes. Those of you are using the other book, page 3.14, question number 7, comment on the reason. No, you have to give a reason for it. Question number 4. Give reason. What about this one then? This is also a give reason sort of. Achha, number 4, then you try. This perhaps we'll do it in the class. Number 4, you try. 7 questions are there. All of them you will write it in the notebook and you will show me. This 7 questions only, page 3.14.
सोपे
इसलिए
तुझ्याशी बोलतात का कोण साधू वासनेवाले